Okay, so then Sophie played a game with Brian and Chris called Hot or Not, and she asked them a series of questions, and then they had to pretty much say if it was hot or not. So the first question was skinny dipping on the first date. Both guys said hot. Schmecks at a house party. Brian said hot. Chris said not. Brian said he's there for the vibes. Hot or not. Sucking toes. Chris said hot. Brian said hot. Dating a mamacita. Both said hot. Matching tattoos. Brian said not. Chris said hot. Splitting the bill. Both said not. Pet names for your partner. Both said hot. Being friends with exes. Both said not. And I'm like, okay, Chris, well, what about baby daddies? Are you not considering baby daddies in that? Because it seems like Huda and the father of her child have a good relationship. So maybe that's not included in that. Deb said good answer, and Callum looked at her shocked because, like I said, those two, they dated a bit on Love Island games. Okay, last question was spicy picks to partners. Both said hot. Okay, after Brian and Chris, Deb said she would love to see Casa Boys in the finale. I think we definitely will see Casa Boys in the finale. It's kind of hard to avoid them at this point. One, because we already know Chris and Huda are going to make it to the finale. I don't know what could happen this week for them not to make it to the finale. So we'll definitely have at least one Casa Boy in the finale. I would venture to say that Brian will also make it with Amaya. Okay, Villain News Network, when they act like they are anchoring the news. Sally said she could be overseas playing ball right now, which is probably the only funny thing she said this entire season. They showed another unseen clip, and it was Clark freaking out over a huge spider. The spider was huge. It was like a tarantula. Taylor caught it for her, but that was that. Another unseen clip was the boys climbing on each other's backs. It was like TJ, Austin, Nick, I know Taylor was there, and there was another guy. They got like 4 guys high, and every time Nick was like the 4th guy. Every time Nick got on top, they would fall down. But it was just really just a silly little moment. Then they showed the girls taking pictures in the photo booth, and a lot of them were like squishing their tits together in the photos and showing their little bums and, you know, that kind of stuff. A bunch of stuff that, you like, I guess we really didn't need to see. It was really pointless. It was Olandria, Amaya, Iris, and Sierra. But then they also showed Austin randomly taking mug shots in his Hearts on Fire costume, because, you know, he was like a little prisoner. So you could see him taking mug shots. And then he also took a picture of him. He kind of pulled his little bloomers up his booty butt crack, and his butt was completely hairy. It was disgusting. Okay, then it was time for the Dumped Islanders to come onto the panel. Austin came out first. He really looked exhausted. I couldn't tell if he was just sad or if he was really tired or if that was just normally him, because he is kind of low energy in a way, but he looked exhausted to me. He said that he and Amaya had a really good friendship. So they showed a phone call from Amaya, and you could tell that they did have a good friendship. So that was something that we really didn't see. And she said she was always able to confide in him. They also showed Austin his time in the villa. Austin said he didn't want to compete with Shelly and Ace because he saw the spark there. Like, he saw the connection there from jump, and it was, you know, really hard for him to, you know, compete with that. And Jaden came out. She was looking really nice. Jaden said she was low-key ready to go home anyway. And then they asked Jaden and Austin what their first date was going to be. And Austin mentioned that I guess they had talked about going on a yacht date in the Mediterranean with a private dinner. And this man, Callum, was like, you're setting the bar too high. You might want to start with Burger King. Okay, then TJ and Andreina came out, and Deb looking at Andreina's butt when she walked by was too real. It looked like she was looking at her butt. I'd have been looking at her butt too, because how can you not? It's apparent that Andreina is still upset about Jeremiah going home. And I think it's this whole conversation about Andreina being boring and her being this, that, and the next is ridiculous to me, because just because Brian says that she's boring or that they don't, you know, they're not getting on or whatever, doesn't mean she actually is. Like, hello, we saw her and Jeremiah getting on wonderfully. It's really that her and Brian just didn't have a connection. So I just don't understand this whole conversation, this negative conversation about Andreina. Like, she didn't have a connection with Brian. What's the big effing deal? Why are we listening to Brian? Why are we taking what Brian has into account when we're judging Andreina's personality? Yeah, we didn't see much of her, but that doesn't mean she's boring. Same thing with Shelly earlier in the season. Shelly's boring. Shelly's boring. We haven't even seen enough of her to know if she's boring or not. You know what I mean? So I really, it bothers me, this conversation about Andreina being boring, and listening to Brian, who's the one saying that, when they obviously just don't like each other. Andreina did have a message from Brian, and he was pretty much like, oh, I wish you the best. I know it probably took you by surprise that I stood behind Jaden. And she's like, yeah, it took her by surprise, because she didn't even know that he and Jaden have been talking. He never told Andreina that he was interested in Jaden, so it was a complete shock to her. And, she said she felt stupid because she just had no idea. Andreina also said that she cried a lot after Jeremiah left, and I feel like we didn't see that. And she's still upset that they didn't get, a chance to pursue things. When Ace asked her the question about Jeremiah coming on strong, she said yes, but that didn't mean that she didn't like that. Like, she said she likes a man that knows what he wants her, and goes for what he wants. So in her opinion, her answer wasn't negative. Her answer in the male challenge wasn't negative. And I know we saw that Jeremiah unfollowed Andreina after seeing that response in the male challenge, which understandably so, because I could see how he thought it was something negative, because it was being asked by Ace in such a negative manner. But I'm glad that she had the opportunity to clear that up, and I'm pretty sure he's going to give her opportunity, to talk about it when she gets back, or whenever she gets her phone back. Okay, then they talk to TJ. TJ's low-key in love with Iris. Like, I really think he is. TJ essentially said that he will be waiting for Iris when she comes out, but if she ends up making a connection with another guy, like, it is her experience, so it is what it is, but he is hoping for her, to come out and link with him. They got Andreina to look into the camera and said, I'm taking your man, so that was funny. Okay, and then they brought out Grayson and all the Islanders who had been dumped. They had a mailbox with questions from viewers. But first, they showed the clip of Huda telling Chris about writing the note regarding Pepe liking Hannah more than Grayson. Grayson says she thinks Huda is a great girl. And she said that Huda is so herself it hurts, which I was kind of like, what do you mean by that? She's so herself that it hurts. What does that mean? And then Grayson said Huda probably didn't realize it would hurt her feelings to ask a question like that. Sophie asked Grayson, like, if she, could do it again, who was she interested in other than Pepe? And Grayson said she was actually interested in TJ, and TJ low-key let her down, gently. TJ's like, yeah, she's a great girl type thing. Then they had some people from the new Jurassic Park movie come up there, like Scarlett Johansson and the guy, and they asked essentially what couples were going to make it and what couples wouldn't. Grayson said that she thinks Ace and Shelly will make it. Jaden said Clark and Taylor, and TJ said he does not think Amaya and Zach will make it, that they will be dumped. But we also know that TJ hadn't seen the episode where Brian and Amaya, got together and kissed and all that. So he saying that he didn't know that Brian and Amaya are probably going to get together in the recoupling. Yeah, so that was a jam-packed episode of Aftersun. Like I said, it was probably the only good episode of Aftersun I've seen this whole entire season. Don't forget to catch me on Twitch tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Watch tonight's episode with me. There's going to be a recoupling. And we also have a vote tonight. But I'll see y'all later.